Squatting Slav TV, a right-wing, I'm not going to say far-right, a right-wing political channel that talks about political things. They have a video called Bird Box is an attack on whites. So we're going to give this a look and see what we think about Bird Box. So Bird Box was basically the series about there being like some monster outside that made people kill themselves, and they weren't allowed to like look outside, so they had to like go with blindfolds and stuff. I watched it. It was decent. It wasn't all that it was hyped up to be, but it was pretty decent. This one, in case you all haven't seen it. And if somehow you haven't seen this, but you still have an interest in seeing it, spoilers, haha. But yeah, let's get to watching. That's so loud. Why is that so loud?
Squatting Slav TV.
If you've been active on social media in recent weeks, then chances are that you've already been bombarded by countless posts.
Why does he sound Scottish? Somebody told me he did like a fake accent, so that's why I'm saying it sounds very Scottish.
From normies praising the latest Netflix movie, Bird Box. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, the movie revolves around a mysterious evil force which decimates the population by prompting those who see it to immediately commit suicide. In Bird Box, Sandra Bullock stars as a woman named Mallory who embarks on a lengthy blindfolded journey to a sanctuary which is allegedly immune to the effects of the horrific epidemic. While the movie may come off as just another mainstream horror flick to the average viewer, the reality is that Bird Box revolves around blatantly obvious themes of anti-whiteness and cultural Marxist leftist propaganda. Has long been known for blackwashing and forcefully diversifying its material.
Forceful diversion. When you have black people in a movie, it's forceful diversion. It's like that little meme that I posted on Twitter. It's like, there are two races. There is white, and then there is political.
The Bird Box movie goes a step further in its obvious attempt to inferiorize, demonize, and belittle white people at every step of the way, despite the fact that progressives are hailing the movie as a cultural masterpiece.
Netflix's Bird Box is really about how white people don't want to see. Okay. I don't know about this interpretation either, to be quite honest here.
And an eye-opener for racist white people. The truth is that Bird Box unshamingly resonates the anti-white attitudes.
I hope it's not just about this article.
Echoed by many of the Marxist globalists in the US. Which was directed by a Danish Jew by the name of Suzanne Bier.
What, Danish Jew, huh? Why is that important, Mr. Squatting Slav TV. We're bordering, we got the cultural Marxist, we have the leftist anti-white propaganda being pushed for the media, we have the director being Jewish. For those of you who aren't catching it, this is like anti-Semitism. This is the Jewish question. Nazi bingo.
Is essentially a cultural Marxist anti-white hit piece used to highlight the state of social and cultural decay in white America. In this video, I'll refer to specific parts of the Bird Box movie to point out its blatantly obvious anti-white propaganda.
Blatantly obvious. I'm ready.
It, if you haven't already, to see if you can spot out some of the recurring themes that we're going to be speaking about in this video. In the opening of the movie, we learn that Sandra Bullock, or Mallory, is pregnant and that her significant other has left her somewhere in the recent past. Like many leftist middle-aged women, Mallory is skeptical about her pregnancy and about keeping the baby, and considers giving it up for adoption before it's even born. She even goes as far as to refer to her pregnancy as a condition and dreads the idea of having to share her life with another human being.
No, I don't think so. Maybe there's a million of one reasons to not want to like carry through a pregnancy beyond just, I don't want to be with another human being. You know, there is a massive cost to time, to like financial resources, to basically your entire life plans for the next like 18 years going forward to having a kid. And given that like her significant other just like left her, it seems, it doesn't seem too unreasonable to like no longer be prepared to have a child, assuming that the other person that was meant to take care of the child and financially support it is now no longer there. Yeah, I'm waiting to see how this is anti-white.
Simultaneously, Mallory brags about how she doesn't need a man to take care of her future child and that she's more than capable of handling the situation on her own. Essentially, Mallory is portrayed as the stereotypical progressive leftist white woman whose selfishness takes priority over having children and a family, and it's blatantly obvious that Mallory embodies many of the traits of today's white feminists.
Imagine learning about a story, or like engaging in a media story about a woman who gets pregnant and is about to have a kid, and then the man leaves, and she doesn't want to like have this kid. She doesn't want to raise this kid because their man fucking left, or like their partner fucking left, and they may not be up for that at this moment. And then calling the woman in this situation the selfish one. Of all the different things you can, it's sort of like the similar way in like why we as a society shame single mothers to a really weird extent, when, you know, if anything, you should be talking about the people that left them, that caused them to be single mothers, in the cases where it was somebody leaving them, and not for other situations in which, you know, they may have like died or wasn't able to care for them or anything. It's just extremely weird that they somehow managed to paint her as the selfish one when her like husband or like her significant other like literally left her and didn't want to raise a child. But yeah.
Clearly, Mallory don't need no man to raise a child, and babies are simply disposable objects which women can give up
Disposable
for adoption
objects?
should they not feel up to the challenge of raising them. Mallory's life situation is obviously symbolic of crumbling white American family values, and the director uses her to mock the fact that white Americans are weak and irresponsible when it comes to having children, and when it comes to having committed relationships. Going forward, we quickly learn that the horrifying epidemic is quickly spreading across the world, and that mass suicides are happening as a result of some horrific evil force in countries all across the globe. While watching the news, Mallory learns that the epidemic originated in Russia, and automatically goes on to blame the Russian government for perpetrating the terror. To the average person, this
are we gonna get Russiagate? Are we gonna get Russiagate?
But the reality is that Mallory is echoing the same anti-Russian sentiments of the Trump-hating globalist establishment.
Oh no! Oh, the virus originated in Russia. And this is actually a reference, it's a politics reference. It's a reference to Russiagate, to the discussion surrounding Russia following the 2016 Russian election. American election. And that's what it is. It's an anti-Trump thing, the fact that the virus left from Russia. Yep. That's a well-substantiated piece of analysis there. Squatting Slav. Good one.
As the movie continues, Mallory is rescued from the epidemic by a group of strangers who allow her to seek refuge in a large house, which is boarded up to prevent them from seeing the outside world where the evil force thrives. Amongst a vibrant, diverse group of survivors in the house, we find a gay Asian man, a Latin police officer, 2 white women, one of whom is pregnant, 2 black men, and an elderly old white man. Despite their differences, the survivors begin to form various romantic interracial relationships.
Interracial relationships? Very suspicious. Also, I don't think that was like a correct account of the different characters there anyway, but it's been a while since I watched it, so yeah. What's wrong with having an interracial relationship? I don't see the issue here.
Mallory begins to lust for one of the black men in the house named Tom. From the
Scandalous.
time that Mallory enters the house, Tom is portrayed as the alpha black male.
The alpha male.
Sees everything in Tom that she didn't see in her previous white partner, who had abandoned her during her pregnancy.
How do you know that the previous partner was white? Did they ever disclose that in the movie? Did they? I'm not sure. And if anything, this should be good, right? Look, family values. They're getting, you know, like a parent or whatever, like a second person to provide for children.
As the group fights for their survival, tensions arise between the elderly white man Douglas and the rest of the survivors following several small altercations. In the movie, Douglas is portrayed as a stereotypical dumb white American Republican who is disliked by both the white and minority survivors alike, and is clearly symbolic of Donald Trump. At one point, he drunkenly tells Mallory that he wants to make the end of the world great again, playing on the popular anti-Trump rhetoric used by leftists in recent times. When a stranger shows up to the house begging to be let in, an argument breaks out between Douglas and the rest of the survivors after Douglas voices his concerns over letting the man in. Despite Douglas's reluctancy, the stranger is allowed into the house by the other survivors who don't perceive him as any kind of threat.
Wait, Douglas was right here though. This is the opposite of the point he's trying to make. The guy that they let in, who Douglas was against letting in, was a bad guy. He ended up killing a bunch of people in the house. He was right. If you were writing this from like a hyper-woke anti-Trump perspective, you would have done the opposite. Yeah, you would have had him be hyper suspicious of like the new person entering the house, and then the new person is completely innocent and doesn't do anything wrong, and like ends up like saving his life in the future, or like being super helpful or whatever. That would be like a, not even, this still wouldn't be a good point, but it would be like a decent point at least. It would be like more substantiated than what it is right now, where he's just saying like, oh yes, the clearly Trump-coded characters disagreed upon for not liking this new person to enter the household and become part of the group. And he was right. This is woke propaganda, because like this is the opposite of what it would, you know, seem like if you wanted to make like a strongly like anti-Trump or whatever narrative on this one.
Director to mock president.
Wait, what was that?
Kind of threat.
There's just a 4-second silence here.
To mock President Trump for refusing to allow potentially dangerous strangers into the country, despite pushback from progressives for open borders who see no threat in welcoming in criminal migrants.
But he was right. He was right in the movie. This would be like a pro-Trump narrative. That the reasonable, stark, solitary, conservative white male was correct in analyzing the threats, while the crazy hippies failed to see past their mandatory inclusionary agenda.
Shortly after, Douglas pays the price for falling to the pressure of the other survivors and is brutally murdered by the backstabbing stranger, who we come to learn is possessed by the evil force.
How is this anti-Trump? This is just showing that he was right, that people should have listened to him. Or the allegory for that would be that people should have listened to the crazy Trump supporter. And because they didn't listen to him, now everybody dies. Can't.
Simultaneously, Mallory and the pregnant woman give birth to a boy and a girl in the house at the same time, and the other woman is also brutally murdered by the stranger moments after delivering her baby. Mallory and Tom
this doesn't prove your point.
The murdered woman and continue their quest for survival along with Mallory's biological newborn child. As Mallory...
Look, there's a father figure in everything. The traditional family values. There's a father, they're raising the kids. It's the and then in the beginning they were like, oh, clearly disposable. I mean, no, that's not what ended up happening, right? They ended up raising 2 kids. There's a father figure. It's a nice conservative love story here. But I guess he can't see, like, past the fact that this person's melanin concentration is a bit higher than that of, you know, Mallory.
Tom and the 2 infants continue their journey. Tom asserts the role of the caring father figure and husband and selflessly takes in both of the white children as his own. Aww. Once again, we're bound with the idea that white men make weak father figures who abandon their partners and unborn children, and that white women can only find true alpha males by pursuing interracial relationships. The idea that minorities are more altruistic and caring than whites is also heavily emphasized, and Tom is essentially portrayed as having all of the positive traits which the white people in the movie lack.
There were so many white characters that were also good. If there is any black character who is a good guy in the movie, then this is clearly globo homo Marxist neo postmodern cultural memes to try to influence the idea that black men are the only desirable men, actually, because they're the good guy. And they're, yeah, and that means that they're better than the white guys, right?
When the family stumbles upon an old abandoned house, they're informed via a remote radio transmission that there's a sanctuary down the river from them which is immune to the effects of the epidemic. At one point during their stay at the house, the family is attacked by a group of vicious armed white men, and Tom decides...
Wait, what? There's a woman right there! What do you mean? What do you mean? What? I can't.
At the house, the family is attacked by a group of vicious armed white men, and Tom decides to...
Did he even watch the movie?
...defend the family from the attackers.
Did he even watch his own video?
...out in the open with no blindfold on. During the altercation, Tom shoots and kills all 3 of the evil white men, and is then induced into committing suicide after the evil force prompts him to shoot himself. Once again, this reoccurring theme of whiteness and evil is pushed onto the viewer, and yet again the minority is hailed as the heroic figure whose self-sacrifice ensures that the weak, selfish white people have a shot at survival. There
were plenty of other characters previously that also sacrificed themselves for like the greater good. It wasn't just the black guy that did it. If there's a black guy who is a good guy, then it is actually a subversion of expectations, and it is proof that people are trying to elevate the worth of black men over white men. If white men are the bad guys, it is proof that white men are inherently bad and evil. If black men are the bad guys, that's just normal. That's in their nature, am I right? And if white guys are the good guys, I mean, yeah, duh. Have you even seen history? Lol. Like, it's so weird.
Tom's death, Mallory and the children manage to embark on their journey down the violent river in a small raft and succeed in fighting off more violent white attackers prowling in the river. After barely making it down the rapids, Mallory and the children reach the sanctuary and quickly discover that the heavily walled facility is a school for blind children. After being reassured that they can...
And this is blatant pro-blind propaganda. The viewers, the creators, the producers of this movie want you to, after watching it, go grab 2 nearest scissors and jam them into your eye sockets and twist them around until there's nothing left there except for 2 empty sockets from which you can no longer see. That is the true agenda behind this movie here. It clearly just wants to be very, very anti-visibility. That's what it's about. It's a pro-blind movie at the end of the day. That's unironically a more convincing argument than this weird, like, hyper-conservative lens that they're trying to run it from.
Move their blindfolds by one of the blind caretakers, the family discovers a beautiful garden full of blind adults and children. Unsurprisingly, the majority of the blind residents congregating in this utopian sanctuary garden are visible minorities of different races and backgrounds, and it's made clear that they're blind to each other's differences. In fact, only Mallory and her 2 children are able to see and embrace these differences, and only now in this diverse utopia are they safe to see life freely with no blindfolds on. Obviously,
there are non-white people in the safe space. Therefore, this is multicultural propaganda.
This closing scene conveys the message that whites will only be able to see and appreciate the world for all its beauty if they choose to embrace life in a diverse society. Although Netflix has long been known for spewing out movies oozing with cultural Marxist and leftist propaganda, the Bird Box movie further confirms that anti-white sentiments have successfully been pushed to the forefront of mainstream.
Yes, anti-white there is a black guy who is good, and there are white people who are bad. Therefore, this is an racist anti-white cartoon or like movie series or movie show or whatever.
In pop culture. Now more than ever before, concepts such as forced diversity, interracial...
Forced diversity? In fact, how is this forced diversity? What? If anything, it was the white family that immigrated into this multicultural, multi-ethnic safe space and safe haven. I don't know. I don't even know what to say.
Racial relationships,
interracial
and the
relationships,
and demonization of whites are being maliciously overused in order to melt away the glue that holds together Western white values. Bird Box, which has been widely embraced and foolishly hailed as a masterpiece by the masses, is clear proof that we have been completely conditioned to the detrimental propaganda which directly targets us.
Okay. Hopefully this one stays up. Nothing surprises me. Most TV shows now are very leftist. I thought so when I watched it too, but the interesting thing is that the caricatured conservative old white man who they tried to make as the unlikable as possible, I was correct in all of his calls, and the over-emotional characters espousing progressive attitude was led them to ruin every time. Yes, interesting. This is not a complete contradiction to the entire analysis of this video. This needs to... I made this observation, which is 100% correct, but I may not disagree with big media figure. So therefore, I'm just going to say that it's in this glaring contradiction to your entire narrative. Oh, the interesting thing is that, you know, everything you said was false. Wow, it really adds more depth to your analysis here. The fact that you were completely fucking wrong with your entire premise. Wow.